You are now watching Footy Prime, the podcast, hosted by Danny Dich, Craig Forrest, and James Sharman.
Episode 11, everyone. Hello and welcome once again to Footy Prime. Sharman, Dich, and Forrest here with you. Before we get started, please follow us and subscribe to us on all the social platforms, be it Twitter, which is Footy_Prime, Facebook, Instagram, Footy Prime, the podcast, YouTube, check us out. You can see our ugly mugs every week as well. And, we're getting there, fellas. Slowly but surely, we're making a difference to the people.
So you say, Sean.
So I say. Well, listen, boys and girls, it's been another great weekend of football. Today's theme, I think, will be emotion. And we'll get into that a little bit later today, but Duncan Ferguson, I think, epitomising the term emotion. And when I mention that name, Craig here kind of cringes because of those battles he had.
The amount
over
of
the
elbows
years.
he had in the back of the head from Big Dunk, yeah, for sure.
But to
show
begin
up,
with,
show up at Goodison Park and he was on the team sheet. It was like, oh no, you're going to get an elbow left on you.
we're going to start today, though, stepping into room 442. I'm really excited about our chat today with someone I've listened to and watched for many years, be it on the BBC or on Premier League TV. Really well known in the UK garage scene, or is it garage scene, as we're in Canada here. We should perhaps mention it here. He's appeared on A Question of Sport, Strictly Come Dancing. DJ Spooney joins us. Spooney, how you doing, mate?
Good afternoon from here. Good morning there, whatever it is.
It's early enough. It's about what? We're taping about 11 o'clock or so, 10 o'clock or thereabouts. It's early enough. So listen, I want to start off here. You and Dich here go way, way, way back, not to age you both.
Way back.
Was Dich the best footballer DJ you've ever encountered?
Wow.
That's a big question to start the interview, Shams.
Dich was a footballer DJ. I think the first ever one was a guy called Paul Canaville who played for Chelsea, but it was a little bit before our time. But Dich and another dear friend of ours, Bruce Dyer, they were the main R&B and garage football DJs. Who was the better one? I mean, Bruce is most probably not listening, so yeah, Dich was way better. Dich was way better. Danny done me such a favour once upon a time. I know this is not football chat, but just to give the context of our friendship and how far we go back. Danny was one of the first people I knew that owned the A4 convertible Audi when they came out.
Ooh,
right?
That was a nice car.
Yeah.
He had a green one, and things had gone well in his life. Then he upgraded his car, and what he did, he sold me his convertible A4, but he allowed me to pay him in installments. This was going back to like 1998, and I've never forgotten that. DJ, absolutely.
Are you still paying those installments?
Coming on the show as part of it.
Yeah, this is the last instalment. Spoon's coming up.
Is that what it is?
But no, we had some good days back then. I mean, Spoons was a good friend from the early days, from when we were starting DJing on the circuit. Me and Bruce, we had our own little night down in Covent Garden. Actually, that was come up in our conversation this morning with Dan Wong, who's just been over in London, and we had a night called the Players Lounge. And myself, Trevor Sinclair, Bruce came down a couple of times as well. And it was only a small club bar that we had in Covent Garden, where it was a really good time for either players that were playing in London at the time, or just our usual bunch of friends or social circles would come down. Can you hear us, Spoons? Hello?
Can you hear us here? Oh,
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I'm just talking about our night that we used to have down in Covent Garden, Spoons, the Players Lounge at the Spot down in Covent Garden that we had back in the day. That was probably our first interaction with all the players that were into music and kind of on that social scene back then.
It's fantastic. I mean, we were influencers and social media savvy before it was even invented.
That's right. And I still had my hair as well, Spoons.
Me too.
That's how long ago it was.
It wasn't that long ago, Dich actually said, what did if I was going to take anything back, I spent too much money on cars.
Cars and music, that's what I spent my money on
Turntables and
back
stuff,
then.
yeah. Well, Spooney, I mean, how did you get into football? Obviously, your roots are in music. Was it that era that you got into football and into that world?
No, I mean, if I'm completely honest, I was into football before I was into music. I remember myself running around the playground pretending I played for Liverpool, shouting out all the Liverpool players as I dribbled around everyone and tapped it into an open net in the play. So, I was into football, but what being on radio allowed me to do, even when I was on pirate radio, was just talk about football as a passion. And when I started doing that on Radio 1, the boss of 5 Live heard me talking about the football, knew that I had some friends in the game, and then they offered me a slot on 606, which I ended up doing for 7 years. So, it was then like Spooney, synonymous with football and music, but really football, and especially my love of Liverpool came way before that.
What do you think about Liverpool at the moment? It's theirs to lose, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what I think about Liverpool at the moment is Jurgen Klopp. What he's done with that, I'm not even going to say with the squad of players, what he's done with the club. He's turned it around, and I think if he goes on to win the Premier League this year, that we have to talk about him in the terms of our great managers. I'm not going to say he's been as great as Shankly or as Bob Paisley, but he has to be in that conversation because of the time, the era, and where he's taken the team and the squad from, and the fact that we're competing in a competition with a side that I actually regard as the greatest ever Premier League team in Manchester City.
Probably one of the greatest ever coaches to turn around a club in Pep Guardiola as well, Spoons. But I just want to carry on with the Liverpool conversation and give a lot of props to Jurgen Klopp and what he has done, because Liverpool have been searching for a head coach, a manager for a long, long time now to install this behaviour, this way of playing, because we can all go back to the 80s where I actually hated Liverpool in the 80s because they won everything. And being a QPR fan, I was like devastated week in, week out when Liverpool played such beautiful football, but it was so consistent, and it was just a win after win, and they picked up everything. And then you go to the 90s and Man United were kind of similar, but I actually love watching Liverpool play now. But do you think this Jurgen Klopp era is going to last for a long, long time, and do you think it's going to be another dynasty, which we're talking about in years to come?
I think what's going to be important is how long he stays and has the appetite for the job. Working with the intensity that he does, be an absolute strain physically and mentally. He's 60 years old, so he's not like he's a youngster. I think he will, if Liverpool win the league this year, I think he'll stay on at least another year and go from there. And then it's a case of, does the club start to identify who the next manager might be, which fits in with the playing style of the players that we've already acquired that are at the club. Now, that's so important, and I think that's where a lot of football clubs go wrong. So whoever that person is, can they play that style of football? Can he then keep that squad together? Now, bearing in mind, Alisson is relatively young for a goalkeeper. Joe Gomez is relatively young. Andrew Robertson is. Trent Alexander's young. Keita's young. Salah and Mane are quite young. Oxlade-Chamberlain's quite young. So, Curtis Jones is just coming through now. So when you look at the core of that team, you can say if they can keep, whether it be Jurgen Klopp or whoever comes in, can keep that squad together for 3 or 4 years and then sign 1 or 2 other players who will be looking and going, I love what they're doing. I love how they play. I want to go and play for that club. Then who knows? Well,
the thing is as well, Spoons, is it's not only the manager, the head coach that can keep up that as you say, that pressure, that competitive side, and the way he coaches, the way he demonstrates himself on the sideline, but it's also the players hearing the same message week in, week out, month in, month out. Yep. Can they keep the momentum? And sometimes when things start to go bad, what it's like, players start turning a deaf ear on things. But I just think he coaches and manages with so much emotion that the players, if they buy into it, I really don't think no one can beat them this year. I really think it could be an invincible year from this group.
Spooney, what do you think about in your opinion, I certainly think that it's the most competitive we've ever seen the Premier League. And in the modern day, when we see the amount of teams and the amount of money and the opportunities for teams to really challenge and continue to do that, being at the top of the tree and staying at the top of the tree is very difficult. Would you agree?
Well, so if you think Manchester City had 100 points, then 98 points, Liverpool came second with 97 points, which had only been beaten twice before, which was by Man City the 2 previous years, including that year. That's the level that you're up in. When we talk about competitive from top to bottom, we just saw this weekend. I mean, no one would have predicted Manchester United would have beaten Manchester City. Okay, it was a derby game, but what about Everton and Chelsea? Mm-hmm. When you look at Sheffield United, how high in the Premier League they are this season, what an unbelievable season they are having. Wolves kind of came into the Premier League last year as an unknown quantity, and any week these teams can beat anyone. Could beat anyone. Last year Newcastle was struggling and they beat Manchester City. So it is so competitive, and that's why when I spoke about the intensity levels. It's not like La Liga or Serie A. Sorry, Dan, we talked about Italy. But, when you look at the top sides, that 80% of the teams they're going to beat most weeks. In the Premier League, I don't think Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp can ever take their mind off the game. 2 weeks ago, Liverpool played Brighton. What a tough game that was. Mm-hmm. This was the first game in 12, 13 games Liverpool have kept a clean sheet.
Yep.
And that's why, it was nice to enjoy the game this weekend because it wasn't that close, really, in the game scheme of things. But it's funny, Spooney, we're about the same age. You're from the South, I'm from the South. We both, I guess, fell in love with this team. While Dich hated Liverpool, we loved Liverpool in the 80s. And I'm going to say something controversial now, but Champions League was wonderful last year. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, a huge game coming up. They've got to get something out of the next result to advance. I don't care about the Champions League this year.
Really?
I just don't care. It's all about the Premier League.
You take the title over another Champions League?
Well, 100% I would. And,
Interesting.
I'm interested, Spooney, as a fan as well of this team. Isn't it the Premier League or bust now? It's been just too long.
It's going to be the first time you ever hear me say this on record, but I'm agreeing with you. If there's going to be a strain on our squad, listen, I would love us to do the double, but if I can only have one, then I don't mind getting knocked out of the Champions League on Tuesday and go on to win the Premier League title because, I went to, I was at the last final when we lost to Madrid. I was there in Madrid for this final when we beat Tottenham. I went to Athens when we lost to AC Milan in the second game. So I've got those Champions League miles under my belt, but what I haven't seen in a very long time, 30 years, is us lift that top flight trophy. So from where we are now, it's something that we've got to go and do. We've got to go and finish. I think everyone in that squad, Dan, you asked a question about buying into what the manager's done. We lost one game last season. Yeah. So I think whatever any of those players thought they knew about football, you now have to listen to the manager.
Yeah. I think what's most impressive as well, Spoon, sorry to interrupt you there, is just in the past week as well, the rotation of the squad. He keeps everyone guessing. I think midweek on Wednesday he made 7 changes, and then this weekend it was another 5 changes with Shaqiri coming in, who's been out of the thoughts of Klopp for the last, I don't know, I can't even remember when Shaqiri played last, but everyone comes onto the field. There's no change in the performance as well. It's just everything syncs really nicely. Everyone comes in. They know the work rate which they have to apply. They know the intensity that they play at with and without the ball. And it's just a continuation. And that is very, very difficult for any coach to manage 12 to 21 in the squad and keep them happy. But to keep them on rotation and then performing at a high standard as well, you've got to give a lot of credit to Klopp and his staff. Not just Klopp, but and his staff as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, as you know better than anyone, Danny, this is what happens on Monday, 10 o'clock when training starts. You can't just expect to play that at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. They are being drilled every single day. So everyone that comes into that squad knows exactly what's expected of them. Everyone was saying, last season, start of this season, it's okay for Liverpool, but if they suffer an injury to any of that top 3, they're going to struggle. Jurgen Klopp's got one better than that. He said, well, they are fit. I'm just going to let them rest. And look what they've done. Liverpool have had 19 outfield players start this season.
That's crazy.
And 16 of those 19 have scored.
Wow. That's a
16
great stat.
Yeah.
Who do you think the biggest challenger is? Do you think we haven't mentioned Leicester this morning?
We're all dismissing them, right? Once again.
Brendan Rodgers, great, obviously a great manager. He's turned things in upside down there. Fantastic. Vardy's on fire. They're playing exhilarating football, and you could arguably say, I don't know what your opinion is on it, that they are a better side than the side that won the actual title.
They are. I don't think that's in question. I've said that on air before. They are a better team. I think when they won the title, it was just a perfect storm of other big teams around them not really being quite up to speed and internal politics, and they just sort of went unnoticed. And by the time anyone did notice them, it was too late. But I think they have got a fantastic squad. I think Brendan Rodgers' decision to leave Celtic on the verge of a historic treble was vindicated. I think he looked at the project and was like, this is a brilliant crop of young players. They've got a very stable board, and any manager going in, you're going to want to know, well, I'm going to get time to groom the team. I'm going to get time to bring in who I want. I'm going to get support from upstairs, and the playing staff that's already in situ are very good. And if you look at that Leicester squad and you actually consider that the biggest transfer in the Premier League this summer, Leicester lost a player for £80 million, you wouldn't look at them and think, wow, they've lost their top player by any stretch of the imagination. He's got Jamie Vardy playing as good as he's ever played at 30 years old. He's got him playing in an area of the pitch now which is deadly. No channels, he's staying in the width of the box. So every time he gets the ball, he's in a zone to shoot and to score. And I mean, the last player to score in 8 Premier League games in a row, who was it?
Jamie Vardy.
Yeah. So
he's got 16 this year?
No. He scored 8 Premier League games on the spin.
But he's got 16 in total this year, has he?
Yeah, he's tops with...
In all competitions, he's got 16. So, again, for the manager to come in and say to Jamie Vardy, look, I want you to start playing like this. Jamie Vardy would have looked at him sideways, but I bet now we're buying him a bottle of wine after every game.
Well, I tell you what, if you're Gareth Southgate right now, I know Vardy stepped aside. He didn't retire per se, but he said, I'm going to just make myself unavailable for selection for England. If you're Gareth Southgate, you've got to be on the phone, haven't you? I mean, think about Vardy coming off the bench, in that type of role in a close game at the Euros coming up. I mean, surely you have to do all you can to get this guy back in the white.
If I'm Gareth Southgate, absolutely I am. If I'm Jamie Vardy, I'm not sure at this age of my career. If I'm Brendan Rodgers, I'm going to have a conversation with him like Sir Alex Ferguson did with Paul Scholes. Because he's going to say to him, look, you're going to go to England. Harry Kane is going to be the main man in that position that you play. So that 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 days, why don't you just go to Dubai or go to Mallorca or go to Spain and have a few days off and just chill out, come back and smash it in the Premier League? And, when you get to the age that Jamie Vardy's at, that might mean and might be more of an attraction. He's done the England thing. He's never going to be England's main man.
I think it's all going to be down to one person, and that's Vardy himself.
Not Rebecca?
Absolutely.
No, not Rebecca. Well, maybe a little bit, but it's going to be down to Vardy himself, because at the end of the day, you can have so many coaches telling you to do this, do that. You can have the England coach telling you can have Brendan Rodgers, but at the end of the day, it goes down to how proud he is to represent his country and how needy the country are of him in going into a major tournament in the summer. And I think with the way he's playing, I believe the way he's playing, he adds a different option to England. He's a different type of player than Kane. Is he similar to Rashford? A little bit. He's pacey. I think Rashford is a better dribbler with the ball, but Vardy is a guy that if you're under pressure in the second half of a game, especially internationally, he can hit other teams' defences on the counter very effectively.
I think if you look at the way that England play, or the two main ways that they can play, if they play 4-3-3, he's not going to play in one of those wide positions next to Kane ahead of Sancho or Sterling.
Yeah.
Or Rashford. Rashford might play from the wide because he's been playing from the left for Manchester United and been playing really well. So you might have Rashford on the left cutting in and Sterling on the right. Or to be honest with you, they can alternate. He's not going to play in one of those two positions. If they play 4-2-3-1, he's not going to play as the one because Kane's going to play at that one. And then he's more likely to play a James Maddison or a typical number 10 in that position. So I think there's lots of bodies for Jamie Vardy to climb over before he's going to start for England. And then it's just going to boil down to, would I rather have that time off as a break, bearing in mind his age, it's a perfect opportunity for him to recuperate and then be 100% fit for Leicester City, because he's going to look at it and go, I can help fire this side to a top 2, top 3 finish, play Champions League
again,
next season, finish the season with a golden boot, maybe knock on the door of another Premier League title. That's most probably going to be more attractive than going along to England knowing the chances are I'm not going to start anyway.
True. Spoons, I just want to change the conversation to an unfortunate incident that happened again in England. And we've been looking at other countries internationally and at club level as well and saying they're doing things wrong. But for me, it's still an epidemic that's really close to home. And we saw the racism come out again at the Man United-Man City game. We had Trevor Sinclair on a couple of weeks ago as well and saying it's still very, very, very high in the grounds in England as well. What do you think? What do you feel we need to do a better job of, especially close to home? We keep talking about banning these other international teams because they're showing racism or they're not doing enough to stop it. But I still feel there's an undercurrent of racism in our own grounds in England.
I mean, what I would say, without putting too fine a point in it, Dan, is that I don't think you get whole stands chanting racist abuse. I think there are individuals that do that. And as long as those individuals are punished and punished severely, that's as much as you can do. You can't get a club you can't get a club completely stamping it out, because you can't legislate for what one person, what an individual or two people might do. And it's very different to when we're talking about federations, international federations, where you've got a stand and they've got flags and banners and the whole stand is booing a black player. That is wrong. And that is when you can hold the federations or the clubs accountable. In Italy the other day, when they had Chris Smalling and Mario Balotelli on the front of the paper and it said Black Friday, like you wouldn't get that in England. You wouldn't get that in England. But will you get an individual on the terraces? Absolutely you would. So what you do, you just be severe with them. I mean, maybe, and I don't know why this would not be the case, but they should make that criminal. And if people had a criminal record for racist abuse, in the way that if you spoke to a policeman like that, or if you said something gay or homophobic in the workplace, you could go to court and get a criminal record for race hate. So that's what they need to do. Forget the whole thing of banning for the season and banning for 2 seasons. Let them go to court. Let them feel the shame. Then let anyone else who's watching thinking what might happen, you go, nah, it's not only is it not worth it, it's wrong to do it anyway. But there's a severe enough penalty there that I'm not going to consider doing that.
In the big picture of things, Spooney, what do you, from a FIFA international standpoint, I believe they need to do more against it, to stand up. There's been some great campaigns, obviously, in England as well, the anti-racism campaigns. But from a governing body standpoint, I feel FIFA need to do much more to combat it, because we know that football has a profound effect culturally by doing the right things, and by them doing the right thing or more, I think it would have a more profound effect.
I mean, football is very tribal, so it's it's us against them. We're this and you're that, and I get that to a point. But when it then goes into where you're going to start abusing someone because of their race, well, not their race, but their ethnic background or their sexual orientation, then that's when we need to stand that out. What FIFA should do is hit those federations where it hurts, and ultimately it's money. And I don't mean fining them. I mean taking them out of a competition, because ultimately that's how they generate their money. Finding a federation €5,000 or €10,000, when the players that are playing for them might earn $100,000 a week, what's the point? It's not going to stop anything. Whereas, like I said, if I only got a £10 fine for speeding, I most probably would speed a lot more than I do.
Exactly. You know, Spooney, last week UEFA announced they will be trying to get more diversity on their various committees to address this. But it seems to me that's only because they're now under pressure. They've had so long to do something about this, and they haven't done anything about it. Is this just a reactionary decision by UEFA, or are you hopeful that there's more to it than just that?
Well, listen, history will dictate that, necessity breeds invention like no other. And if it's just because it's really bad, that's why they're doing it, then it's better late than never. If it means that our children don't never have to suffer it, then that's progress. Slow, but it's progress nonetheless. Maybe they should have done it before. I think it's really important that governing bodies are diverse, that they have people from a cross-section of society, because everyone loves the game. And whether they be black, white, Italian, Indian, straight, gay, any of those denominations, you need to have that reflected, because who's going to consider people, who's going to consider those different sections when there is an issue?
One thing that I don't see diversity in, if we're going to keep on this subject, is in coaching. Where are the black coaches? It doesn't represent the percentage of players. It's I don't know how many are in all the 92 clubs at the moment, 4 or 5 maybe at the most.
Yeah, at the most. I think
that's unfortunate. A lot of great black players, good black coaches have gone in and had to find other avenues, move to other countries to try to get an opportunity.
Yeah.
Jason Roberts is with CONCACAF as a technical director right now.
Sol Campbell's just got the Southend job, which he's basically had to beg for. And this is an England international, stellar player.
Chris Hughton's sitting there waiting.
So I don't think it's openly racism, but it's certainly systematic.
Yeah, listen, I think that what happens with football, that if you look at who owned the club and who sits on the board of these clubs, that's going to have a bearing on it. I think that historically there have not been lots of black coaches that have done well, so that doesn't act as an inspiration for those next set of players coming through, because they just don't see it as a viable career path. And that's something, like I said, at some point you have to change. So one person gets a job and then someone else will look and go, right, I might not make it as a player, but I might make it as a coach. But if there aren't any coaches, no one's going to look at that. So when you look, one of England's greatest goal scorers, Andy Cole, is working as a goal scoring coach at Southend with Sol Campbell. Why is Andy Cole not working with England, for instance? Right? He knows where the onion is as well as any. All right, Les Ferdinand is sitting on the board at QPR, Danny's old club. So, he's in a position of power and influence. That's another part of it, where can we get more black people in governance, in a position of power and influence, sitting on more boards where they can champion other managers and other good managers. So we can get, why is Sol Campbell not getting a job in the Premier League, or at least in the Championship?
Yeah, valid point. So, Spooney, you're almost out of time here. Let's switch gears to end it up here. You mentioned before how the DJ culture, the club culture back in the day was great within football in London. Yeah. Is it still alive and well, or has it really changed, do you think, over the years?
It's changed a little bit now. Too many cameras. Footballers.
Yeah, fair enough, though, right?
I mean, the music that I love and play, it's very different to what a lot of the young players are listening to at the moment. It's a different vibe. It's champagne, it's bottles of drink with sparklers in it. I only saw sparklers on November the 5th. I'm not used to it.
Spoons, I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on at the moment. Do you just want to give us a heads up? I know my sister's been to one of your new concerts where you're doing the garage classical theme, which is really, really good. You got an album coming out as well, I think, over Christmas. But I just want to say, how well you've done since like we were on pirate radio station, seeing you and the Dream Team together.
Corrupt FM?
Mikey. No, it wasn't Corrupt FM. It was a lot more professional than that. But it gives me a nice warm feeling the way you've gone with your career, not only with football, but with your music as well, producing, and a lot of the other guys that are still doing well, and seeing you put this concert on now is fantastic for the old school of the Garage Nation as well.
Yeah, brilliant, Dan, man. I'd love you to come. I mean, we sold out the Royal Albert Hall in October, which was phenomenal to think. You know, we were doing gigs and events for 150 people, and now we're selling out one of the finest music venues in the world. So, you know, that's testament to UK Garage. We always believed in it. We always loved it as a genre. And here we are over 20 years later, still doing our thing. But, you know, next challenge, see if we could get it on the road, see if we can get it in Canada. We're doing Kew Gardens, the Royal Botanic Gardens of Kew, in next summer as well. So our first kind of outside festival. So yeah, everything's good here, and obviously doing the Premier League TV, which I'm going to be on air in about 7.5 minutes. My producer's giving me daggers.
All right, we'll let you go then. We'll let you go. Thanks again for coming on, Spoons. Really good speaking to you. Claire says hi as well.
Send my love, give her a kiss, and just before I go, guys, just want to say, you'll never walk alone.
You know, pal, you know it. Thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate that. We'll chat to you soon, and have a good fan zone today.
See you later.
That is DJ Spooney. Great chat. And just Google DJ Spooney. Get on Twitter. Follow him at DJ Spooney on Twitter. Find out what he's doing. And you know what, fellas? I'm thinking, just you mentioned there, pirate radio. How hard could that be, Dan, to start our own pirate radio station and just do like 24/7 this kind of chat? Maybe a couple of ska sets from Dich. Why not?
It's pretty tough. I mean, back in my younger days, we had to sort the aerial out, because you had to go and put an aerial on top of a block of flats that was well away from where your studio was, and that was pretty risky back in the day in London because first of all, the weather wasn't good.
If
but
you're
also...
not sure what we mean, like, check out, there's a show called People Just Do Nothing.
Yeah,
it's on Netflix, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think it's Netflix.
Big show in England, actually.
It's brilliant. It's just brilliant about this pirate radio station. It was, I mean, having never been involved in pirate radio or garage music, Dich does tell me, though, that's pretty much bang how
Very
it was.
Similar, yeah.
There was a lot of pirate radio back in the day.
Radio Caroline was the first
That's
one, wasn't
right.
it?
Hanging off the coast there, a couple hundred miles.
That's right, in a boat.
In a boat.
There's a great movie, actually, about that. And I forget what it's called now, about the Radio Caroline era. What's that called?
How did that all fall? How did it all fall apart?
It is right. It is. It's called pirate radio.
How did that all fall apart? Like, what did they?
They got a hole in the hull.
They got a
hole in the boat. Got pretty windy there on the south coast.
But I wonder. I mean, they were obviously shut down by the authorities, right?
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with pirate radio. You have to continue to move because you basically have the antenna or aerial that is supplying the radio, the frequency to a small area within that part of London or wherever it is in Manchester, Birmingham. But the police can locate that antenna aerial over a 2-3 week period. So you have to continue to move, plus your studio as well, where your DJs are coming in every 2 hours, 3 hours, and they go 24/7 as well. So it was a great way of developing as a DJ, but getting your sets, your DJ sets, your music that you liked as well out to the public to see if you were liked, to see if you started to gain a following and as well. But it was just a real vibrant kind of environment for us all to listen to the new music coming out before we used to go out at the weekend and just to socialize and, you know, stay out of trouble.
It's amazing. So how would you balance that with your training and your games?
I was young back in, I was like 14, 15, 16 when I started.
Okay, so it's before you were a pro.
Before I was
would the
a
clubs
pro,
have looked down upon you if they found out that you were a pirate radio DJ, if you continued it during your playing career?
I don't think so.
No?
I stopped by then anyway. I was more legitimate by then.
Well, we are some.
Yeah, they don't care unless if you show up and you do the business.
Yeah, that's all they care about, right?
Yeah.
That's all they care about.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I love that era of radio. I remember back in growing up, my little transistor radio under the covers, not listening to Dich here, but whoever it was.
With your big antenna, your aerial that you had to pull up.
Way up there, yeah. Rod Lucas was a guy I used to listen to. He was fantastic. That's more mainstream. That's in Victor Radio. Remember Victor Radio?
In Victor Radio.
Yeah, that's in the south, in the Kent. It's fantastic. I always get these calls from like the local prison at where was it again? Hey, it's Bob from wherever it was. Can you play this for me, Rod?
From Belmarsh.
Belmarsh. Put his timpy in the
Actually from the prison?
Yeah. All the
And you
time.
had to play it then because you didn't know when he was getting out.
Yeah, Rod, you really should be playing this, mate.
They only get one call a day as well.
But maybe in the new year we'll get Dich spinning some tracks at a night one.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
One evening we'll do that. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, back to the football talk here, show. And I mentioned emotion being kind of the theme today, and I mentioned Big Duncan Ferguson, who took the helm of his beloved Everton, and they smashed Chelsea 3-1, showing that the new manager bump is alive and well. But Craig, analytics today, we understand, I think it's an important part of the game, but it's not everything. There's a balance in there. Like anything, you have extremists. Those that love it, those that hate it. Somewhere in the middle, we can meet. But the fact is, emotion and heart and desire still has a massive role to play in sport. And we shouldn't dismiss that. And for whatever reason, how they beat Chelsea, we can discuss that. But Goodison Park was alive this weekend.
Yeah.
And that team were inspired for Big Dunk.
Yeah, they were. And you look across Stanley Park at Klopp, and we talk about emotion and what that does. And you look at the little edges that you need to be successful. And I think he brings that extra little bit. I think Silva was really a counter opposite to him. He was very quiet at Everton. I think the fans are looking for more than that because they see what's going on at Liverpool. So emotion is a big part of it, and it certainly transcends to the team, and the players will feed off that energy as well. Eventually as well, you have to know what you're doing as far as setting up your side and everything. Emotion won't carry you all that way. You have to be very tactically astute, but it's certainly a massive part of it. And you look at the type of manager that Klopp is, and I would love to have played under him.
Did we see player power come out again this weekend with Everton?
As far as they forced Silva out?
Forced Silva out, but also turned up to play against a Chelsea team who've been performing pretty well lately. But you go back to Duncan Ferguson, and you're right, Goodison Park was rocking this weekend. And I think it's exactly the response what the whole club needed. Whether Dunk's going to take over full-time or not, I think it was such a massive game for him. I mean, I was reading a story today that Howard Kendall's widow gave him Howard Kendall's old watch that he used to wear during the game.
Wow.
So he was wearing that. On the other arm, Big Dunk was wearing a sweatband that he probably elbowed you with, Craig, back in the day from his playing career. And just the overall emotion that he was showing on the sideline, picking up ball boys, throwing them around, cuddling them, bringing in 2 or 3 of the younger players that he's obviously worked with out of training time. Davies was good. Calvert-Lewin scored a couple of goals. And for me, that's what Everton Football Club is about. They're a big community club. It's a stadium that's very close. The stands are very close to the pitch.
A great stadium.
And they make it difficult for away teams. And I think Everton kind of veered away from that. But now, with Big Dunk in charge, whether they give it to him long term, maybe just give it to him for the short term to get them the response they need. I don't think there's no rush for Everton at the moment. I think better managers and coaches are going to be available in the summer. So if he can just lead them to a little bit of safety, maybe into that middle of the group, and it's going to be tough away from home. But he's been coaching, he's been assisting for the last 4 or 5 coaches that Everton have had now. So he's probably got his own ideas. He's not a rookie going into a club or onto the training field where he's kind of thinking, what do I do next? He's been there. He's been around it. It's just whether he has a support staff around him now and the owners actually trust him with the millions that have been spent in the summer to take Everton away from the relegation scrap that they're in and move them up towards the table and then address it in the summer.
But for now, I think that, Duncan, if he walks in that dressing room, he's holding those players accountable.
Yep.
Expecting a certain amount of effort. That goes without saying. And when Big Duncan walked on the pitch when he was a player,
yeah, there was an aura about
him. There was,
yeah.
And the stadium reacted to that as well, just walking on the field.
Yeah.
And he brings that, for sure.
Well, as an opposing goalkeeper, as opposing player, I mean, I'm assuming he was brought up in the pre-match meetings and video sessions. But how did it make you feel when you knew that you're going to be facing a guy like that? I mean, you're a big fella, you could handle yourself, but I mean, he was one of the greatest I hate to use the term power forward. That's a hockey term. I know that, but that's what he was.
Yeah. No,
Target man.
Target man. I guess the most nice way to put it.
Yeah. How it would go in our dressing room when you're playing against somebody like that would be, you as a goalkeeper, come and collect everything. Come and you know, get over top of them, and we'll back you up around. You know, so they expected an awful lot, obviously. But he was a fierce player to play against.
Someone that you must have looked up to. Dich.
Yeah, well, the tactics when you're playing against a player like that is to stop the distribution into him. So from wide areas, don't let them have easy crosses.
Don't give away set
pieces. From the back as well. Don't let defenders have time to just drop that ball into him, because it's a tussle for your defender to now be 1v1 with him. So that was the tactical side of things. But the other side was the mental approach, because you had to have strong defenders or goalkeepers as well to deal with the barrage of long balls, direct balls that were coming into the box. Very similar to playing against Andy Carroll,
Danny Dicchio.
Yeah.
Crouch, I wouldn't say too
Flow.
much because he was very good with his feet, but those old school kind of target players were very, very efficient back in the day because of the way the teams played around them.
And we saw, I know, listen, it's one game, right? So let's just take a bit of a breath here. Who knows how it turns out at Everton? But we saw just in the one game how they did throw more balls into the box. They were more direct than we saw under Silva, and it obviously paid off. But that style of football, I mean, listen, tactics to me are very secular. They come and they go. Right now, we know what it is: play out from the back, possession, tic-tac-toe, essentially. Do you ever see a day when the 4-4-2, the direct football becomes back in vogue, or is that a thing of the past now?
I hope it's a thing of the past. I think it's a much better game to watch now, much more entertaining. Pitches are great. They're like carpets. The players have the ability to play out of the back, most of them. We do see a lot, which is, I like to see statistically, Dich, playing out of the back. Some of the teams, I'm not sure they're as capable as others, and they cough it up. And on the weekend, I can't remember, there's been a few occasions where giving the ball up in bad areas, I think Bournemouth against Liverpool a couple of times, that it has cost them. And I just wonder sometimes if playing a little more direct for some of these teams would be a better idea, but everybody's into that. But the long ball direct football that we saw in the 80s, the likes of Cambridge United, Wimbledon especially.
But you can do both, right? Can you not do both? Can you have that in your toolbox? If you've got to pull it out, you can do it?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's part of the game plan. Like, there's no correct way to play for 90 minutes. You have to adjust. What we call it, if it's not X, it's Y. You have to adjust to the opponents, and the opponents have to adjust to you. If you're a team that plays direct, then the opponents are just going to drop off and surround your target man or the players that you're trying to drop balls into or feed off of second balls. So then you have to start playing a little bit of a shorter game and trying to draw the opponents out. It might be that you have a Vardy up top and you're trying to draw the opponents out to push their line up a little bit higher, and then you can play a little bit more direct into the flanks or into the space. So for me, there is no correct way. That's part of the week's plan leading up to the game, where you're going over certain objectives. If the game starts to turn around like this, then we have to adjust. And that's all part of football. Like, as I said.
And playing to your strengths.
Playing to your strengths as well. Like, you could have a small striker where you can't be dinging balls into the box or crosses. That's how teams defended Barcelona for a long, long period. They said, okay, we're going to really congest the middle area and we're going to give you the flanks so that you put a lot of crosses in, but you have Messi up top or Suarez, who are not very good in the air, and we'll deal with it.
By the way, did you see the Suarez goal this weekend?
Unbelievable. Outrageous.
You have to see this. You haven't seen it, just Google it.
We talk about Son's goal, which could be the goal of the year in the Premier League. But Suarez's back-heel goal was something I've never, ever seen before. And people were saying he was trying a combination. He was trying to play the ball back to whoever played. Was it Messi who played the combination?
The combination was
no
ridiculous.
No chance at all. He's actually bounced the ball with his back heel into the ground, and it's gone into the far corner.
I just saw he's done it before earlier in his Barca career, but not quite to the same dramatic extent because it was closer rim. But he knew what he was doing. Yeah. It was just so ostentatious that, I mean, who would even try that? There's only going to be a handful of players who would try that in the world.
Yeah. And it took the shine off for Messi's hat-trick as well.
Exactly, which wasn't bad either.
Yeah.
No.
What was that, his 35th or something, hat-trick?
35th hat-trick. He broke Ronaldo's record.
Bad week for Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Lose Ballon d'Or and your hat-trick record. Man, he's got to be crying.
I was
in
wondering,
this
what does he do with all the balls? Because he got a hat-trick.
He's got room for
He's
them.
walking off with a ball.
One for each bathroom in his mansion.
Not wrong.
There's some great goals though this weekend. You mentioned Son. You sent me a text. I wasn't watching the game. I was doing something else, and you said, "Have you seen the Son goal?" And I quickly checked it out. Oh my God!
Yeah.
I mean that turn of pace. He hits that fifth gear, boom, and he's gone through about 10 players.
And people were talking about the bad defending from Burnley.
Oh, come on.
The bad defend. Okay, there was a couple of situations where they could have brought him down or people lunging in, but
they tried
to run from your own 18-yard box, your own penalty box, all the way to the opposite end, and then to show the composure to finish with a sublime finish as well. Yeah. Please don't take away from Son, because that was an amazing goal. It's difficult to run box to box without the ball, but to run box to box with the ball is fantastic.
I think
it was a really good goal.
I think it was Andy Townsend was doing the commentary, the color for that game, and he nailed it. I thought as a good player as he was, nailed it when he said when he broke into the box, that's when he needed to calm down.
Yeah,
because he's run all that distance, done the hard work, but you need to calm down, not get flustered, and he did that brilliantly well. It was something. I mean, all the goals for Spurs were nice. Actually,
they were very good goals.
Very good goals.
Kane scored a lovely goal into the roof of the net as well.
My favourite play this weekend though was the Wolves. I think the last Jota goal, because the pass across by Jimenez with the outside of his foot.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's a simple play on paper, but it's
very
not
difficult.
And I love that, and they're playing well now as well. So
they play some nice stuff, Wolves.
Really good weekend.
But going back to Spurs, interesting that Jose Mourinho, under him, they've scored I think 18 plus goals now.
It's the new Jose.
4 or 5 games that they've played in.
Has he changed?
I don't think he's changed much from Pochettino's reign there. He's added a couple of pieces. He's playing Dyer a lot more in midfield, who we trust. But I just would like to see whether he stays with the same game plan in the Champions League, because he knows the Champions League very well. He's won it. And his teams play a lot more defensive, a lot more kind of rigid in the Champions League. So I just would like to see whether he plays with the same intensity going forwards as they do in the Premier League, because they've been looking very, very good. And they were unlucky, I thought, against Man United midweek as well.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I hate to admit it, but it's good to see him back, isn't it, Jose?
Yeah,
he adds a little bit of colour to the league, and any great man can evolve and change. And maybe he has. We're going to find out.
Still waiting for you to do that, Shams.
I don't evolve. I'm not a great man. You should know that by now.
Pies. Your pies are evolving.
They're evolving, yeah. Before we go, quickly, we mentioned earlier the Man United City game, of course. United are kind of like the new Leicester, aren't they? In that they love not having the ball, and as long as they have a chance to attack on the break, they're going to be pretty good, but it's going to be against those teams that plug it up and sit deeper that they have issues. But that being said, pretty impressive performance, wasn't it, overall?
I thought it was. They showed a great. Talking about emotion, it was great. It was a different level, and you have to credit Solskjaer as well. That he has a plan. He has an idea, an ideology of football that he wants to install in this team, and I think that is slowly getting there. I mean, they're obviously not close, and they need some pieces for sure, but it was better from them. The players responded, and there's some good signs happening at United at the moment.
There were some dodgy decisions as well that Man City weren't happy with.
The last one was clearly a handball.
Yeah.
The one before wasn't, though.
But again, we're going back to the new rule, which I've specified on here before. If your player is going down and his arm is extending to brace his fall, then it's not a handball. And that was the clear decision from the referee. I think it was just before halftime that Pep Guardiola was so irritated about. A year ago, that's a handball. That's given as a penalty kick. But because this is the new rule in play, if the player is diving down to block a ball and he's bracing his fall with his trailing arm, then it's not a handball. And I felt a little bit sorry for them, but it was the correct call on the day. Manchester United were very organised. I give them that, as you said, in their block. They were very, very efficient on the counter as well, with Rashford, who showed his pace against
They're so quick on that
two
break.
defenders that are not the quickest. Stones, Otamendi, who came on as well. But I just thought it was a good performance, and maybe they are slowly turning the corner because they got a good result at home against Spurs, which was a difficult game for Ole. Give Jose a little pat on the head at the end of the game because there was a little bit of comments that I don't think he liked prior to the game and after Jose departed Manchester United. But I really feel that this is an important period now for Manchester United. It's important for all clubs going into the Christmas festive period, but for Manchester United, this is a really important period for them to see as a group how far they can go this year. Are they going to go far in Europe? I think they've qualified from their group already, but can they compete and get into a top 4 spot? I really don't feel that Chelsea are a top 4 team, guys. I've watched them a couple of times now. I think Lampard's had...
Defensively is the issue, do you think? More than
But they
anywhere?
were just so poor against Everton. I just feel that maybe they need some introduction of players. Their ban's been lifted, I think, in January, so maybe they're going to go out and get some players. But I just feel that this team this year is a Europa League team. They're going to get into the Europa Leagues at a stretch.
Were you guys able to enjoy Christmas when you played? I mean,
No.
obviously it's hectic.
Oh.
No. So Christmas itself, I mean, the games, obviously we understand the grind, but the family time, the actual Christmas itself, no?
No,
No.
brutal.
Was it worse than actually
Yeah.
working in the broadcast industry
It's
during
opposite.
Christmas?
It's opposite. Yeah,
That's pretty crappy as well.
Opposite to now, we used to look forward to early parts of January where we could sort of take a step backwards. But as far as the Christmas period,
So every day
goes-
you're either training or playing, essentially? Is that what it felt like?
every day, yeah. And in a hotel on Christmas Day, whether you're home or away, we were anyway most of the time, and you could hear all the Christmas parties going on in the hotel. I was like, what are we doing? I actually thought we
You
should
didn't
have been
sneak
better.
out,
at
come
home.
and tell me you snuck out a couple of times.
Not when you're playing on Boxing Day.
No?
No,
You're a goalkeeper,
At
you
1
can.
o'clock. What? I tell you,
Could wear the beer goggles and go.
never ever did I go out if there was a game on Saturday, a Thursday or Friday night before a game in 18 years. Never ever, except for once.
And which game was that?
Well, we'll have to talk to him because we're going to get him on here. Don Hutchison was playing for Sunderland at the time, and I decided there was a party going on, and I thought, all right, I'm going to be on the bench, West Ham against Sunderland. Xhaka's starting. I'm 35 now, and I'm thinking, no chance I'm going to be playing. So halftime, I could see that Xhaka's struggling a little bit, and he's on the treatment bench, and he's like, big fella, I don't think I can keep going. And I'm just like, you're going to have to play second half. I said to Xhaka, I leaned over him and I whispered in his ear, Xhaka, I went out last night. There's no fucking chance I can play. And he's like, sorry, big man. So, all right, remember Les Seeley was a goalkeeper
Les
coach. So
Seeley,
Les, grab my gloves, let's go get warmed up at halftime. And anyway, I remember the free kick that Don hit, and it was coming around the wall. And I saw 3 balls, and I picked one of them, and it was the wrong one.
Oh, no.
And I just scooped it right in the top of the net. And we finished. We were losing 1-0 at half. I think it was 2-0 final. But it was, yeah.
Was the night out worth it, though?
No.
It wasn't, eh?
Can't even
No,
remember it.
I can't remember it. All I remember is Don hitting the shot.
Someone must have told him you were out the night before as well.
was like,
Maybe he was
Xhaka,
out in the
Maybe,
background.
yeah.
I was giving Shaka a massage. I was like, Shaka, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay.
No, man. Can't go.
No chance.
No chance, man.
You call yourself a professional.
But going back to Christmas, Shams, it was a very testing time for a lot of players. It was interesting, though, 2 weeks prior to the festive period where you actually saw a lot of players pick up unnecessary yellow cards.
That's a real thing, is it? Because you always hear the stories, but that's a real thing.
Through either arguing with a referee or telling him some unfriendly language or
was it
taking a reckless challenge.
5 yellows, you get a
Yeah.
suspension. So you know the numbers
You
coming.
was already on 3 or 4 bookings for the year, and then you kind of worked it out where your 5th booking would lead you. Would it be Boxing Day or New Year's Day? New Year's Day was the cream of the crop, really, where most guys tried to get off. But going back to Christmas, having a young family, it was a tough time because you would always train on Christmas morning, regardless of whether you were playing away or not. If you were playing at home, most coaches would let you stay with your family in the morning, open Christmas presents and stuff, and then you would have to leave and join the team for Christmas dinner at the hotel. If you were playing away, more often than not, you were basically training and then on the road. And then you would obviously have a game on the 27th or 28th as well, so that was tough if you were away again, and then leading up to New Year's Day. So having a young family was difficult at times, and I have to say I respect my kids a lot, especially my older two, where I missed out a lot over Christmas, but they understood that Daddy had to be away, and that was my profession. And those are the things you had to deal with. It was a fantastic time to be a supporter. And I remember being a supporter myself back in the day. Loved the Christmas games, loved travelling, watching QPR. But being a player, not so nice.
Yeah. Did you buy your way out of it with the missus and the kids? Like, I can't and won't be around this Christmas, so here's a car.
No.
Here's a new house.
No, nothing can buy time. Nothing can buy time with your family. I don't care what.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Here, Dich. See, that's the softer side of Dich.
Yeah, no.
Family man.
It's true, though.
It's true. It is true.
He's got a heart. He's actually got a heart.
I mean, the last
Tin
number of
Man.
years, covering the Premier League for TV, right? I mean, often you are working Boxing Day at 6 a.m, right? And that's going to throw a loop into your Christmas plans.
Well, being hungover on TV, you can do it.
I must admit, there was a few times early in my career that I did it, and I soon learnt that it ain't worth it. I cannot do it. As it is, I have difficulty speaking, let alone when I'm hungover. So I stopped. But there are a few sessions early on, back at the score, especially Brian Budd, man. He's a bad man, Budgie was. I remember one show, Sports World, I opened it up saying, "Welcome to the morning after the night before." And I was just a mess. And I said, "Budgie, this is all you, go."
Yeah.
He just talked about half an hour.
And he was fine.
He was fine. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. But the more age and hangovers don't mix. It's as simple as that. They're just not worth it. I had a rough one this weekend.
Yeah.
Didn't even think it was that bad until Sunday morning. Then I realised that I cannot do this anymore.
It's a sign, Shams.
It's definitely a
big
sign. Jesus.
Especially when you're mixing drinks like you do.
I
Can't
don't know.
have vodka and brandy no
I'm
more.
usually a beer and wine guy, but for some reason this weekend it was beer and wine and a little bit of champagne and G&Ts and this horrible, sickly cherry vodka thing.
Schoolboy
Shots.
era, Shams. Schoolboy era.
Oh, it is. It really was. Anyway, fellas, I think we're out of time.
Really?
Anything else you want to get to? Anything else? You are welcome to get to something else.
Oh, there's a big thing that come out today, actually, about Russia. Did you see it this morning?
Oh, I just saw that. Yes,
Yeah,
before
we're
it's
talking
there.
about federations.
4-year ban for
4-year
Russian
ban.
teams.
So
I
they'll
didn't
be out.
expect that in football. That's
Yeah.
an interesting one, yeah. Good. I mean, I feel bad for the clean Russian football players, but...
It's a systemic thing. You've got to just crush
Yeah.
the country in this case to get change, right?
Yeah.
So it's unfair. Innocents will be affected, but look at the authorities there and blame them. Simple as
Well,
that.
they've said that if athletes want to prove that they are clean, they can compete under neutral flag, whatever that means, in the Olympics. So if you win
Did
your
last
race...
time, right? They had that last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just want to know whether the Russian football team can do that as well, because they're in the Euros this summer. They've qualified. I think
It's
they've
really
qualified.
interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
And then they're out of the World Cup as well.
Well, this thing's going to go to
Are they out of
number
Euro?
of courts, right?
I'm not sure.
I think it's just 22, isn't it? The
they
World
said
Cup?
the World Cup.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's Euro or not.
Yeah, it's just breaking literally before we came on today. We saw it. So big changes afoot, and it's good to see WADA with some heavy bands here because you got to change it. It's just
Has to be.
ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Thank God they don't test us, eh?
Clean as a whistle.
All right, everyone. We'll be back same time next week. Our thanks to DJ Spooney. Follow DJ Spooney on Twitter at DJ Spooney. It's a really good chat. Please follow us on Twitter, Footy_Prime, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It is Footy Prime, the podcast. Email us anytime, footyprimepodcast@gmail.com. And of course, our thanks to DeanBlundell.com, also our home. And Craig and I will be on Dean's podcast on Tuesday. Looking forward to that. God knows where that'll go.
Yeah.
Usually goes off the rails, but it's a
Looking
lot
forward
of
to
fun.
it.
It's a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks to Dan Wong and Dev behind the glass, and Eggplant Pictures and Sound for providing a little stable of microphones and stuff here. Hope you enjoyed that, everyone. Cheers for listening.